Hello there, and welcome to today's episode of the Speech and Language Kids podcast. Today, we are talking about how to automate your IEPs using checklists and some AI tools. So, I'm going to be giving you a bunch of tips today. We're going to be talking through our process for how we systematize and automate our IEPs and service plans or whatever annual plans that you have. And we're going to be talking through all of the resources that are included in our SLK curriculum for this as well. Because if you have been following our podcast this summer, we have been doing a summer reset. So each week I've been releasing one topic that we can, or kind of one assignment that we can go through to help us create systems and processes that are going to make it easier for us to manage our caseload this school year. Hey, Jillian, welcome. All right, I am live inside the curriculum hub. Now, I will apologize up front. Apparently, the event got scheduled for 10 this morning instead of noon, which is when I usually do my podcast. So a couple people tried to log on earlier and it was not there. So I apologize to those of you who had a scheduling conflict there, but we are live now. So, hey, welcome, Stacy. Those of you who are in here live can ask questions as we go along. But if you're listening to the podcast, welcome as well. I'm going to be talking through some different ways that you can automate your IEPs, but I'll also be showing the resources that we have inside our curriculum. So let me pull that up now for those of you who are with me live. You'll be able to see what I'm seeing. Hey, Pam, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen real quick. That's the one. All right, so we are going to go to our IEPs and annual therapy plans section. So I know here in the United States, we have IEPs, but we also have service plans, which are for children who are from private schools, who are attending speech therapy through the public school system. I know there are other types of plans. There are IFSPs. There are plans that you might have at a clinic or a private practice. So I'm not going to specifically put this as IEPs. We're going to talk more in general about how do we just make annual therapy plans, and then you can kind of tailor this to whichever type of system you're using, whether you're US based or somewhere else. Hopefully you will be able to see how to do this, but of course, ask questions if you guys have questions as we go along. Okay, so we've been talking about these different workflows this summer of how do we set up a system for planning? How do we set up a system for data collection? So this is how do we set up a system for running our service plans, our annual therapy plans, our IEPs, whatever you want to call it. So the first thing we're going to do is set up a system that we can then repeat throughout the year every time we have one of these come up. So what I like to do for my IEPs or annual therapy plans is to have a checklist. And this is one master checklist that has all of the steps on it that I need to complete to run one annual therapy plan or IEP. Now, what I like to do is have all the steps laid out and then have a version of this that I can copy for each time it comes up. So that way I can check off boxes and know exactly where I stand for each client on their annual therapy plan. Okay, so inside our SLK curriculum hub, we do have some pre-made IEP checklists that you can use. We have a digital version using a tool called Trello, and then we also just have a paper checklist that you can download as well, which is right here for those of you who are following along inside. And so all of the steps are already laid out on there, but it's also an editable document. So you can go in and change the steps based on the requirements that you have in your particular location. But I'm going to go over the big parts of it. There's a lot of little compliance things like, send home the notice of meeting and send home your parental rights and all of that. I'm going to leave that out of this conversation and the podcast version because I know that that's different no matter where you are, depending on where you are. But I do want to go through kind of the big sections of what I consider to be the big steps you need to do when creating an IEP or an annual therapy plan. So basically we're going to walk through that so that you have an idea, but keep in mind that your job here is to make your own master checklist and then figure out where you're going to house that. So if you have some sort of a digital to-do list system, you can have checklists saved in there. Our platform that we use for this is called Trello, Trello, and it is just a kind of a project management tool, but you can use it to create checklists. checklists, and then you can make copies of that checklist and then check things off as you go for each client. So that's available inside the hub, but then you also have the paper one. So if you're going to make a paper checklist, then you can just have a stack of these paper checklists ready to go, and then a place that you're going to put the ones that you're working on. So then the idea is every time you have an upcoming IEP, you grab a checklist, you write the client's initials at the top, and you drop it into your active to-do list folder. And then that's where you go every time you sit down to work on IEPs. You say, yes, here's where I was with Johnny. And then you have all of that listed out. So as we go through the steps today, think through how you could create a checklist that is similar, that would help you have all of the steps. Or, of course, if you want to grab ours, you can go over to hub.speechandlanguagekids.com. That's HUB. That's where all of our curriculum, all of our resources live, and you can grab our copy, whether it's the digital or the paper one. Okay, so let's talk through kind of the basic steps of what you're going to want to do, and then we are going to talk about some AI tools as well to help you out. So the first thing you want to do when it comes time to do an IEP or an annual therapy plan, you're going to start a new checklist for that client. So whether you are using some sort of a digital tool like Trello and you're making a copy of that checklist, or having a physical copy that you can then check off. And like I said, this really saves a lot of time when it comes to starting and stopping the task, right? Because I don't think I've ever sat down and just gone through all of the steps of creating an IEP from start to finish without being interrupted. There's usually a lot of back and forth of, okay, I sent this schedule. How does this work for you guys? And waiting for responses, waiting to get the data or the information from other team members. So we don't want to waste time with trying to remember where we were and what we still need to do and what needs to be done. So if we have a checklist that we can check things off as we go along, then each time we pop back in to work on that task, we don't lose that momentum of where we were and what we've done. So new IUP pops up on your calendar. You're going to start the checklist for that client, and then you're just going to work through the steps in order. One of the very first things you're going to want to do is to get input from the team based on how that client is doing in the classroom and at home if you can. Now, if you're not in the school-based setting, then your input in terms of what data you need might look different. But we have inside our platform, we have some progress monitoring checklists. And so we have one that's kind of an overall checklist that includes all areas of communication, but then we have an in-depth checklist for each specific area. And those areas are voice and resonance, functional communication, fluency, social communication, speech sounds, and language. So you just pick the area that child has qualified in, and then you can just send the teachers and the parents this checklist. And so it has 2 rating scales at the very beginning that just kind of overall, how are we doing in that area? That's going to be really helpful for you when you are tracking progress over multiple years, because you can then say, okay, are we making progress towards functional communication or towards social communication? And so you can kind of track overall progress over time. But then the second page is going to have specific checkboxes for what does it look like in the classroom when they're struggling with these different areas like emotional regulation or self-advocacy or social awareness or abstract language. And so all of our checklists are written in terms that sound like exactly what it looks like in the classroom, right? So all they have to do is read through and just check the box. Is that something this child is struggling with or not? There's also some impact statements that they can check that tell us how it's impacting them functionally. But that's the screening checklist. So whether you're using our tool or something else that you have, it's really important to get that feedback from the team to say, okay, yes, he met last year's language goals. Are we still having trouble with language in the classroom, or is it time that we need to reevaluate and see if maybe we're done with therapy? We don't want kids lingering in therapy just because they qualified once upon a time and their 3-year reeval hasn't come up yet, right? Maybe we did it. Maybe we're there. Or maybe the things that I'm seeing in the therapy room are not translating to the classroom. And so we need to tweak our plan to support them better in the classroom instead of just adding more service minutes, right? So getting the input from the team is super, super helpful. You can have parents fill this out, teachers fill this out, and then you can fill it out based on what you're seeing in the therapy space. And then that way we have 3 different settings that we can compare to see the big picture. And speaking of the big picture, it can be very helpful to fill out what I call a client snapshot at this time. So you can take everyone's data and you can put it all on one page that gives us an idea of which areas of communication they're struggling with, which specific skills they need to work on, and which ones are the biggest priorities right now. Because often our clients are struggling in a lot of areas, and it is not practical or feasible for us to address every single skill they're lacking in one IEP year. Now, yes, we need to support all of those areas and we need to make sure they have what they need in order to access the curriculum, but that doesn't mean we need a goal for every skill they're missing. So, the client snapshot is a different packet that I've put together that gives you the ability to take all of these different screeners or checklists or data that you got from other people, put it all together on one little packet that's just going to say, okay, here's how we stand in each area. And then again, this will help us in comparing progress over multiple years so that we can say, okay, well, last year, here's our packet. Let's look at where we were last year. Now let's look at where we're at this year. Where have we made progress? Where have we stalled out? Where do we need some extra support? And then at the end, it allows you to prioritize some areas. Which skills or sub areas are we going to focus on this year? And then also to have a conversation with your team about the recommended levels of support. Because direct speech language therapy in our speech therapy room is not the only solution. There's a lot of times where what we really need is to add more support in the classroom, or for teachers to have specific strategies that they can use to help the child generalize the skills. And so there's the last page of this client snapshot is going to help you have that conversation and show your team that there's other ways we can support children that's not just adding direct minutes with the SLP. Because even though that sounds great, that's not usually the thing that's going to get them to the finish line in terms of learning the speech and language skills that they need in the place they need them, which is in the classroom. So that's included in that as well. All right, so we're going back to this overall idea of what's the checklist. We start the checklist, we get input from the team, and we put together a client snapshot so we can see the big picture. This client snapshot is going to help guide decisions for you on what you're going to work on next, right? So it all leads through one to the next thing. And from there, then you're going to choose your goals. Now, inside our SLK curriculum, we have our goal bank, so to speak. All of our goal packets have a goal associated with them. So if you go through the progress monitoring checklist and you say, yes, language is a problem, you put it all on the client snapshot and you say, sequencing and retelling is really our biggest area of need here. Then you go into the curriculum and you find the sequencing and retelling goals and you pick the level. We have beginner, intermediate, and advanced level for every goal. And you say, okay, got it. We're at an intermediate level. That's the skill that they need to work on right now. And there is a sample goal right there. You can copy and paste that into your goal system and then just tweak it to be exactly what they need for their level. And then from there, you are ready to write your IEP. Now, here is where I really, really love getting to use AI. Okay, so I don't want the AI to be doing the thinking for me, right? I want to be looking at the data. I want to be making decisions about what they're struggling with based on what I'm seeing in the data, because that's where my role as speech language pathologist comes in, right? That's where my training comes from. That's where my intuition, all of my experience and expertise is going to go into making those clinical decisions about what skills they need to work on and how we're going to work on them. The thing I don't need to spend all of my time doing is writing out everything from scratch for every new client. A lot of times when we are writing these service plans or these IEPs, the verbiage is similar. The way we're talking about things is similar. That's not the part that we need a master's degree to do, right? So once you have used your amazing, beautiful, speechy brain to create or to come up with the goals to make these decisions, then we can use the AI to help us write it out in a way that makes sense. Okay. So I know there's a lot of controversy about AI. I know there's a lot of cautions about AI. And yes, I agree. We need to be very careful with AI. But if we are using it as a tool to make tasks faster that we otherwise would take us a longer time to do, that's different than letting the AI come up with the whole therapy plan. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. But if you guys have questions on that, those of you who are with me live, pop over into the chat and ask those questions, because I would love to have more conversations about how we use these AI tools. Okay, so inside the SLK curriculum, I have created what did we call this? An IEP service plan builder. So this is basically just a little AI bot where you fill in a few details, check some boxes, and add in the information you need. And then it will spit out a block of text that you can copy and paste into your IEP or service plan to explain what you've come up with. All right. So you can definitely use my bot here inside the hub, but you can also use other AI tools as well. The thing I will caution you on here is we need to make sure we are protecting client information. So at no point should you put any client identifying information into an AI tool unless you have confirmed that it is HIPAA compliant, that it is some sort of medical system. My tool is not HIPAA compliant. Just using ChatGPT or Claude AI, those are not HIPAA compliant on their own. So make sure you're not putting any identifying information in. So for example, this one that I have for the inside the hub, you're going to put in the pronouns, but not the name, right? So we're not putting any name or initials. You're going to input what they qualify for, such as a certain type of diagnosis or a certain type of services. You're going to specify the areas of need like speech, language, functional, fluency, social, or voice. And then if they have received therapy previously, you can say, okay, here's the previous goal and their percentage and whether or not they met the goal. So you can add that information in. My bot has a space where you can put that in. And then you're going to put in the new goals. So this year's new goals, producing grammatically correct sentences with 80% accuracy. So the cool thing about the AI is you can kind of put in chunks. So you can put in phrases, you can summarize, you can just say, okay, we got this goal for this percentage, and here's why, or here's what we're seeing in the classroom. You can just kind of put in basically like bullet points, and then the AI will write it up in language that is professional, but still easy to read by parents and all of that. So that's our tool, is you basically just put in those pieces of information, then you click generate narrative, and it will just generate a sample block of text. It's going to have client instead of name, and it's going to insert all of the information that you put into the form. And then you're going to copy that and paste it into your IEP system. And then you're going to edit it. This is my other word of caution. Do not just use what gets spit out. It is AI. It's going to make mistakes, and it's also not going to be customized exactly to that client because it hasn't met your client. So you're going to want to go in and tweak it. But what this does is it gives you something to start from. So you're not sitting there with writer's block going, okay, how do I word it when they are having sequencing trouble? What was the impact in the classroom that I always, we always write those same phrases like, oh, we work on sequencing and retelling because it impacts their education, it impacts their ability to access the curriculum and blah, 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 right? So again, we're not having the AI think for us. We're just having it help us word it and then give us a place to start so that we can edit that and tweak it and make it make sense and be tailored to that specific client. Okay. Those of you who are with me live, Jillian, Pam, Stacy, hop over into the chat. Is that making sense? Do you have concerns or questions about using the AI? I would love to hear your input there. And while I'm waiting for that, let's go back to the master checklist. Okay, so this is writing the first draft of the plan, right? So we've gotten the input. We've put it together in a snapshot. We've used that to guide our decision on what goals we're going to pick. We've customized the goals. And then we just use the AI tools to help us write the actual verbiage that goes into the plan. We're going to edit that, and then we're going to go ahead and run our IEP or therapy plan meeting. So this is where we all get together and we have these discussions together. And of course, we're going to have to go back and tweak things after the meeting based on the conversations that we had. But this allows us to have everything ready to go for the meeting. Whatever other pieces of this plan that you have to have in there, of course, you add those in. And then you're ready to go ahead and start therapy for that student for the next IEP cycle or the next year. So that's the big picture here. So basically, we're using systems and tools to our advantage. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing because I don't think you guys need to see that part right now. But we're using these systems to allow us to have a process that is repeatable and that is automated to the extent that we're able to do that, right? We still want to be making these decisions, but if we have these tools in place that can allow us to write things more quickly, to collect information from teachers and parents more quickly, to put it all together in a snapshot that we can see quickly and easily, we can make these parts of the system work together and create almost a completely automated process where all we have to do is say, yes, it's time to do an IEP. I have my system. This is going to save me time. This is going to allow me to finish this process more quickly so that we have more time for the other stuff, right? Because there's so much other stuff. But that's what this summer reset is all about, creating systems for all the pieces. So this was our IEPs or annual therapy plans. This coming Friday, let's look at dates. Friday the 24th of July, we'll be talking about screenings and evals and how we create systems and use AI tools for that. So hop on over to the hub for that one as well. That's going to be really good. And then the last Friday of July 31st, 2026 is the year we're at. If you're listening in the future, we will be releasing our communication labs, which is our new system for running school-based speech pathology that basically uses all of the things we've been talking about, our curriculums, all of this, and puts it together in one piece that's going to make it so easy for us to run school-based speech language pathology quickly, efficiently, and help kids make faster progress so they can move through and out of therapy, because that is our goal. So look forward to that one. That one's going to be a really fun one. But this coming Friday, we'll be talking about the screenings and evals. So we've got that coming as well. All right. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you guys inside the hub. Head on over to hub.speechandlanguagekids.com to get all the resources I've talked about today, plus all the curriculum packets and soon to be the communication labs as well. And we'll see you on the inside. Bye for now.